Everyone. Good morning, everyone. We are just admitting the last few people from the waiting room. We will get started shortly. Thank you for your patience this morning as we get Halton Garden Week 2022 off to a start. I think everyone is now admitted from the waiting room. So welcome and good morning to everyone. Welcome to Halton Garden Week 2022. We're excited to host this event once again, virtually, unfortunately this year, but hopefully back in person very, very soon. My name is Andrea Rowe, Director of Sustainable Environments for Halton Environmental Network, one of your co-hosts for this event, alongside Helen Stevenson, working in the background at the moment. She is the Program Manager for Halton Food, one of the programs here at HEN. So I'd like to take this moment to not only welcome you, but to also reflect upon the many reasons an organization such as this would host Halton Garden Week or a CD Saturday event. It's to feature local subject matters such as our speakers, but also to connect with each other, learn from each other, share experiences. And it's my hope that we can also come together to learn, but also to act. We need to put our learnings into action to learn how to restore the health of the soil, to protect the plants and the animals, and the people that are around us and make up the land that we live and work upon. So if you aren't already aware of the history of the land that you live and work upon, I invite you to do a little bit of research, look into the history of where it is that you live. The HEN office, Halton Environmental Network office, here in Oakville is on Treaty 22 land, home of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Some of you, however, may be joining from other places across Ontario or even across Canada. So please learn the history of your land, take the teachings of this week, and help us to create a more sustainable future together. So at this time, I would like to welcome the first speaker that we have for Halton Garden Week, Terrylynn Brant. She's a Mohawk seedkeeper who operates a seed heritage bank and Haudenosaunee Agricultural Resource Center on Six Nations. She's built an eco-friendly earthship with model gardens to share the ways of the Haudenosaunee. After 35 years in Indigenous education, she's now a mentor and a consultant of Indigenous gardening and food security. So welcome, Terrylynn, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'll turn it over to you now.
Well, as I say, thank you, first of all, for the invite this morning. And I think I was within this last year, and we did a little bit different presentation last year. So once again, thanks for having me come in today. And as we woke up this morning, we all kind of may be waking up to what may eventually be a really different looking world. Okay, so in our language, the word skana is the word that we use for for peace, right? What the European calls peace. But the literal definition for peace actually means freedom for people. That's what we don't have that word peace. We have the Western languages have. We call it freedom, because we feel that when people and entities and animals and things are free to go about their business and their daily lives and do their things, then that's what creates skana. That's what creates this atmosphere of everyone getting along and supporting each other. And it's what we call has a layering effect. So that's really important for us to always remember. And there are other concepts and words that we use that get us up to this place of skana. But, with that word skana on my mind today, it's just due to the world situation. And we don't really want to dwell, but we got to acknowledge that everyone basically around the world will be affected, So we let us try and bring that into our minds as one, that during this time of crisis, and we want to encourage everyone to have a good mind as we go about our day. I just can't imagine waking up to my president or prime minister or anybody saying, hunker down, this may be it, so I really hope we can have thoughts around the things that are happening to our friends on the other side of the world right now today. So, and this kind of is leading me to my talk. So today, like, I'm going to talk not really about specific plants, because I mean, it takes you like 2 seconds to go and Google native species or indigenous plant varieties, right? You can Google them and you can find out tons of information on the internet. Okay. So it's not really the exact, we don't have to spend our time with that. But one of the things that I feel that we have to think about is that relationship of why we have them in the first place. Okay, why we are going to be encouraging the planting of them and what effects that they have on us, right? So that's why what I decided to talk about today, because I think that, I can talk about any plant as just like anybody, but I mean, you guys can Google that for yourself and maybe get a lot more from it on the specifics that you need. But when we start to think about plants, okay, it's important, like in terms of an indigenous world view, is that we don't think of them in isolation. We don't think of them as just being, oh, here's a plant, the garden center, grab it, throw it, oh, it's pretty, I like the color, shove it in my ground, and it'll grow. You tend it and grow, it'll grow. But is it happy there? Okay, is it really want to be there? And that's one of the things that we think about. So at this time of year, the people are starting to get excited about planting, and everybody is, I'm sure, getting excited about planting because spring is on its way. We're looking at seed catalogs. We're attending these seed, seed exchanges. And people are starting to get excited about that kind of stuff because we've had a long winter and we've had the COVID and the sickness and all those things. So after this long winter, and especially when we start to get those few little cuspits of sunshine in these days, we start to get excited and something starts moving in us. And so in our busy lives, we start to gather this excitement for various things that are coming up, be it holidays, significant things, planting times. But I just want to make mention about how it is that the earth affects us, even in these days when it's bitter cold out and we look outside, it's bitter cold and there's a gloom, you can tell there's a change coming, right? And one of the things that's significant for my people at this time of year is the winds, okay? And depending on where you live, right? Winds are very significant in the changes that they bring to our environment, be it in a positive way or what we might think of in a negative way, okay? And even in that negative sense, the winds have a job to do, have a responsibility and a role. It's like everything else. So sometimes we have to, as they say, accept the good with the bad, So when these high winds start passing over us, and I hope you've noticed them in the past, I'd say about a week and a half now, we've started to develop these, all of a sudden, there's going to be high winds tonight. You hear the weatherman say, and most people say, oh, well, geez, my lawn stuff put away and things like, so they kind of think more about, am I going to, in a position, have I protected my property? Okay. So they don't think of what is those winds doing to affect this environment that we're in, right? So when the high winds are starting to pass over us, they start to signal a change, okay? And the same way that the gray skies signal a change, like when we go about people are always looking at their weather apps and, like just look up and observe and see what's there. Much like in gardening, do your observation, just take time to look and you'll learn these things, right? But those gray skies and those high winds, they signal a change. And these winds, they start to swirl and they'll start to mess with the air pressure, right? So that's why we call this time the early spring. It's not just spring, which, we have a date, kind of the equinox time, but this is what we start to call the early spring. And it's that first signal. So it's the time, and it's that time when these northern winds that we've had these cold winds that we've had, they're starting their journey now. And they have a journey to return back to their homelands. And once they start on that journey, that sets off a whole series of things. So throughout any time between equinoxes and solstices, there's a period of time within each of those where the environment starts to change, and it's usually signaled by winds. Okay. So the winds today, they don't always get a lot of interest unless you're the weatherman, but their movement signals that whole series of environmental changes. And it's because it's the beginning of a cycle of change, and those winds start to blow, and they're triggered by little bits of sunshine that we have. And I don't know if you know, last week we had a couple of days of sunshine, you know, and we had some high winds and things. And that sunshine, what happens, you know, we say that Mother Earth looks up and she greets that sunshine. And at these little times, she's doing this little tiny significant movement that we as humans don't really, we can't feel it, but she looks up, right? And when she does that, she begins to face what we call her elder brother, the sun. And that little movement happens, and so the sun comes on her face, right? And it starts to rise, like starts to warm up, right? So it starts to warm the earth, and then you start to get this rise. And that's why we start to see these like bits of foggy days too at this time, because that heat starts to rise, you know. And then as soon as the heat rises, it's like, you know, in your house, the cold air swooshes in right away. Okay. And this movement, because just Mother Earth does this and looks up, right? That movement creates even bigger winds. And that's why we get these high windstorms now. So these winds get so strong that they actually can push the north wind back home. Okay. And that's what we hope it to do. Right. You'll hear quite often the weathermen talk about the jet stream. Okay. Well, that's our northern winds that he's talking about. Okay. So this movement of the wind starts to push, you know, the northern winds back to the Arctic or back where they're coming from. So we see these winds as the beginning, as a time to awaken the earth. Okay. They warm up, and it begins to not just warm up the earth, but it slowly starts to warm up the trees. Okay. And the thawing causes the sap and the buds to come to life. Okay. On Sunday, we had a real warm day. So I took my grandchildren out to do a couple of what we would call our first just kind of initial test taps. Now, a lot of huge maple syrup companies, they're out there tapping in January, right? And they do because they put in thousands of taps. And it's not really good to tap a tree when the tree's frozen, right? You know, you kind of want to wait till that sun hits it and warms it, so that you can penetrate that wood in a little bit more delicate way. So that's what we start to do. Okay. And what we look for is, first of all, those high winds to come. Then we head to our red maples and we look for the actual bud to start. Okay. We look for the bud. The red maple gets the bud first. Okay. So that's kind of our second reminder that we've had the high winds. We see the red maples budding. Okay. So that reminds us that it's time for us to start tapping. And we start to look to take, at this time of year, for those of you that are out foraging and collecting, we will take cuttings from things like wild grapes, right? If they're just too crazy and got too much, you know, it's good to cut them back. Wild grapes and even your elderberries, right? You take some cuttings from them and we just put them in. Then we also go to a willow tree, usually that black willow, the one that's the indigenous species, and we take them and we'll just put them in a vase, like we put flowers and water, and we chop up the willow and throw it in there, because that stimulates that growth. So this is the time that we're propagating bushes, right? If we don't have any and our friends got an elderberry, we go there and we take a cutting or two from that, and then we start to propagate our own so that it's got a few weeks, to grow. And so we can put that out. So that's an important thing that has been triggered in this new growth, and that's where you'll start to see it. So we have this ability to start to get our transplants ready for things that, go to the garden center, you're paying $30-$40 for an elderberry bush when you can just start your own. Takes a little longer, but you start your own. So that's kind of like that different third reminder. We also see certain birds returning, like those crazy, what do they call them, sapsuckers, and some of those woodpeckers. And what they're doing is they too will start pecking holes in the trees, and they make different kinds. Some of the kind of a square hole, some of them more round, but they make their, and what they're called sap suckers because that's what they do. They suck sap. That's what they eat. But they do, they're, one of the initial, them in the woodpecker, they're kind of the initial plant or birds that come, and then they bring, or they create that hole and they drink that sap in preparation for other insects. And for, like, one of my probably most favorite bird is the hummingbird, right? Because they say the hummingbird is closest to the creator. So it drinks sap too. And so that's important to understand, that just because way back here we had this wind starting to act differently, that how it puts in motion a whole bunch of things, okay, to set up that cycle. So this awakening is what's stirring in your body right now too, right? It's telling us that we have to move into the next cycle with the earth. So the sap starts running and the early plants, and we even very soon we'll be looking out looking out for our wild onions, right? And our garlics. And then after that, the leeks will come and the fiddleheads. So those early greens are starting to come. They are, they're all in due time, all in their own time. So all these indigenous plants start enticing us, right? Okay, get out there, come on, move around, get out there, eat some, right? And they're asking us to eat them because it's not only because they taste good, right? That's an obvious that they taste good, but because they like the sap. We drink more of the sap than we worry about the maple syrup. It's the sap that we're after in the early spring. But the two of these things help revive the body of the humans, right? And of birds and insects that also feed off these things. And what they're doing is they prepare us for our spring diets, which are really lots of fresh greens and things. So it's all about eating with the cycle as the earth starts to do things, because it helps to make us much more stronger. I'm a person who's probably on the proactive health side. I don't believe in running out to find medicine, so to speak, just to have. When if I need them, then that's a whole different process and protocol that I go through to get them. So when I'm, picking up, foraging for things, I'm foraging for things basically as a food source and to help with the revitalization. And I'm trying to eat them in cycle as much as possible, right? So all during this maple syrup time, sap will be in everything. I'll drink it all day long instead of water. It'll be in my coffee. I'll make it into my tea. I'll put it in my soup, anything that I would normally use water, that we use sap. So we're trying to get this in because sap is a natural thing that builds our system and helps us clean out all the diseases from the winter. So that's really important. So the change is in everything, and the indigenous plants are a big part of our healing, but we have to acknowledge their order, their place, and when they are there. I know we get into saving and prepping and trying to keep things around forever, but even in our cycle, we have times when those medicines, we didn't use them, then it's time to send them back to the earth. And we do that every year. We don't just keep them hanging around for eons, okay? Because we asked them to be medicine. If we didn't need them, then we have to send them on, right? So we start to learn their names. It's important to learn the names of indigenous varieties, whether it's trees, shrubs, plants, flowers, because once you start to learn their name, it's also important to understand their uses and how you can support them, okay? Now, a lot of indigenous varieties of plants, indigenous people don't have names for them, okay? And the reason, I know in Western culture and the Latin languages, and they use all these different languages to try to identify everything under the sun, and they're logical and they help make sense. But for us, we didn't name them all, and unless we had a use for them, right? Unless we were using them, because that's when we're asking the creator, I call this, give it a certain name, and that's when I'm asking the creator for you, permission to use that particular plant for that use. So that's why you can head from one indigenous community to another and find out that, like, hey, that's the same, they speak the same language, but they use different words for the same thing. And that's why, because not everybody uses plants or things in the same way. But indigenous plants are like indigenous people, that they literally have a right to their homeland, right? A right to their homelands, because to make themselves whole and healthy. Okay, and sometimes we forget that plants have a homeland as well. You know, we say, well, I'm from this community and we're living in this territory of, and I said, well, anybody ever speak for the leeks? So you live among them, I live among the fiddleheads, you know, acknowledging them too, because they have a home here. And that's what makes us healthy. By making room for indigenous plants in our gardens and our open spaces, we return that diversity, right, and balance to our lives. That's really, really important. So we create a positive connection to cycles that exists, and we learn how to improve our own ability to heal ourselves without ever having to pick one flower. People have to understand that you don't always just have to collect medicine and eat it, okay? Plants, simply going to the environment of where those plants exist, right? Into that space where it's maybe full of a certain indigenous flowers, or, and particularly trees. Trees are big healers of people. And shrubs, they create a place of positive health, okay? They give off vibes and things that naturally heal us. So the more we understand and learn about that, the better, okay? And once we start doing that, visiting a place, right? And I notice this in schools, being a teacher for many, many, many years. You know, parents were saying, oh, can you, we want you guys to grow a garden. We want you guys to, you know, teach about Mother Earth. And, you know, I said, well, that includes a lot of time on Mother Earth, a lot of time in a garden, okay? We can't expect children to respect or appreciate something that they don't know, okay? It's like having grandma at the nursing home. You know, you take your child there once, oh, that's your great grandma. They don't know her, right? And because they need to have time with her. So doing that is a really, really important part of our environment. So I just want to take a pause real quick for a few minutes here now. I find that if I go on too long, then if people have any questions or concerns or comments or things they'd like to say, then now is a good time, because when we wait to the end, then sometimes we get a little bit, we lose our train of thought, so to speak. So I'm just going to pause for a couple minutes. And if there's anything, I'm not good at reading the chat.
That's okay. So, we've had some nice comments of thanking you for sharing your knowledge. I have found it quite interesting around why some plant names have maybe not had Indigenous words associated with them. I know I've been trying to do some signage, and I've been looking for the Anishinaabemowin word for certain grasses, and they're either lost and unknown at this time, or maybe it's simply because they haven't been named. So that was something that I hadn't been aware of. So I appreciate that learning this morning too. If there are any questions, you can put them into the chat. I will relay them to Terrylynn. If you think of something along the way, please continue to use the chat function, and we will take another break. But I don't see any specific questions at this time.
Okay, I just didn't want to get too far ahead.
No, that's great. Thank you for pausing.
And I know people like to hear me just rattle on and on, but sometimes, it triggers something. And that's one of the problems with Zoom,
Yes.
electronic stuff, is that,
Especially because we don't have people's faces showing this morning too. So feel free to use the chat. If you want to ask a question live, just let me know and we can give you permission to turn your camera on the next time, Terrylynn.
oh, I didn't know you turned their camera off. Is that why I got no faces?
That's correct. I know. Now you know what it's like to be a teacher in a virtual classroom.
Oh, here, I'm always telling people, turn all your cameras on, because I come into contact with many, many people. And when I don't see their eyes, you deny me the right to see them.
We can turn cameras on if you'd like.
Yeah, I appreciate, because, I meet somebody here and eventually, they come along.
All right, I will go through and we'll see who's willing to turn their camera on. We can. I'm going to ask my tech people to assist me at this as well. Not sure if we can or if it's in the admin feature at this point.
Okay. So I do see a question in there, somebody interested a little bit more about the healing trees provide. Many trees actually emit things, right? In fact, most trees emit at least a scent, right? So you walk by a tree and you think, geez, that smells good. I like that. And then like another one and you don't like the smell. And that's all kind of personal. Some people appreciate certain odors and some don't. So that's really important for us to think about, is we look at a tree, we see its beauty. We use all of our senses. We start to hear it, right? And it kind of reminds you of water or this rustling. So right away, it starts to offer to you beauty for your eyes, and it starts to offer you this sound that's around you. And that sound is very uplifting, okay? Then we'll hear a bird here and a bird that lives and makes that tree its home, because the tree is just not the tree, remember? So with indigenous varieties and species, all these things are there. So the more we plant them, the more we attract certain insects, and then those insects are eaten by certain birds. So all these things start to just kind of connect all in together, right? So we can start to smell, and that heightens certain things. And then when we sit upon, like close to trees, many trees emit things through their roots, okay? Sometimes those are toxic, like, the way we think about tomatoes and the nightshade family. It's a negative, and it can be, like you don't put certain plants, you don't grow certain things next to tomatoes because they don't like them, right? And it affects them. So same thing with trees, right? But in a natural environment, the trees themselves start to, indigenous varieties will attract each other, right? And you'll find more invasive varieties or introduced varieties have a tendency to kill, okay, or to push away indigenous varieties. So that's why you'll see all these programs for green organization to please pull these plants out, or please get rid of that tree, because they affect the environment in a negative way that affects the growing or the development of a huge invasive or a huge place of indigenous species. So as trees, different varieties of them. Now, I'm a Haudenosaunee person, okay? Meaning I'm an Eastern woodland Indian, okay? So I come from traditionally a wooded area. I am not Tewa or Hopi or Navajo who comes from the desert, right? So when I visit those places, I don't feel comfortable. I never feel comfortable. I can't completely relax, even though they're beautiful and in their own right, okay? I'm a person from the woodlands. That's environment is what makes me whole. That's what soothes me. That's what comforts me. I need things all around me. Okay, that's the way we are. So in our healing, many times you hear people talking about, oh, I'm going on a fast, or I'm going, on isolation, or I'm going, to do these things. We return to those places of healing. Okay, so those places that have as much of the indigenous varieties that exist. Now, under those trees also grow all kinds of, indigenous varieties of plants, okay, again, that can be you know, when we go there in those spots and we ask the creator to help us heal us, and he might guide us, and all of a sudden one of those plants attract our attention. Okay, it's calling you, it's saying, hey, you need me, pay attention to me. So it's whether you actually pick it and ingest it, or dry it, or make a tea, or you simply, you know, rub your hands, you know, over it to feel it, okay, to get some of the oils. Okay, there are all many ways. You don't always have to take stuff out of the bush. And sometimes that's a good reminder, because indigenous varieties are in such limited manners. So we have to be careful of that. So to fully heal myself, you know, I'm looking at my emotional, my spiritual setting, my, you know, the physical, and we look at all those quadrants, and those things, all those quadrants being fed in some way is what's going to heal me. Okay, not just a pill from the doctor. Okay, especially if I'm not in the right frame of mind to be healed. But usually when we return to places of healings, and we all know, because how many times have you walked through a really nice park or something like that, and all of a sudden you get this deja vu, I've been here before, but I know I haven't been here. You know, that feeling, that intuitive gut feeling that you get, this earth is calling you, it's trying to provide. So pay attention to those things, because it's really important. And the more that we do these things, the better off we find ourselves being. So I hope that kind of have to, so it's part of the whole system. And that's why the plantings of these things and making sure that they're there is so important. Not just the flowers, it's the trees, it's the fruits, it's everything that's there. Okay, so I don't know if there are any other questions on there, but I just wanted to, you know, that's a really important thing. And it's kind of crazy, because I'm looking at, I think it's Japan or someplace in Europe, they're actually starting to do tree counseling. They're starting to recognize the fact that of the power of the earth to heal people. So it's kind of a new age thing over here in the United States. So, you know, you can go spend $30,000 and get trained to sit under a tree, or you can just go sit under the tree and listen to your body, and listen to yourself, right? Because that's what it's all about. And for any people that are involved in any kind of health fields, counseling, those kinds of things, those are really important. And that's why you're starting to see, and it's not about planting an indigenous medicine garden, it's planting indigenous varieties of plants and creating, you know, putting a little bench there, or creating the space that the people can be in that environment and do their counseling, or do their talking, or doing their visit quietly with themselves. That's what it's more about, right? It's not about, you know, making sure we've planted all these, you know, you're never gonna, there's so many plants, you're never gonna have them all. So I just wondered, was there anything that I needed to answer as well before I go on?
There's a bit of a follow-on question from Anne. This question might be related to what is being talked about. Would you speak to plant communities? How do we make space for the quote unquote right collection of plants that are happiest growing together?
Well, I hate to burst our human bubble, but that's the creator's job. Okay. And I know a lot of people have moved away from faiths and having hope. I am very much still connected to a faith, all right, to my own beliefs and hopes that the creator will make things right. So as I say, there are hundreds of varieties of things, okay, and there's lots of experts to ask and say, if you know, and you just, you know, contact them at the local conservation area. If I could put in 2 indigenous varieties that are really needed, what would you suggest, right? And then you ask the creators, that do you think they'd want to be a home in my garden, in my place, right? And so what I kind of encourage now is people to plant their own forage, okay? So I discourage people from foraging, right, in the natural environment, because and the reason I got to this conclusion was I had some people over, and they talked about, one person mentioned they had gone to get fiddleheads at this certain park, a certain place, and they got a bunch. They says, but I was, you know, I only took a quarter of them. I was really, you know. So when they mentioned it, another person in the group, they went and they did the same thing. So this group, this bunch of forage stuff that was there originally, well, the first person took part, then the next person took part. So in the closer populated you are to a populated urban center, the chances are that the foraging that's there is can easily get depleted or doesn't, So what I encourage people to do is at seed time or root transplant time, get out there and grab a few. I have my garden full of wild onions and leeks. I just went to the bush and got them and brought them home because I know I want to eat them every year. So therefore, that population in my bush can continue to spread, right? And oftentimes one of the program or things that we're doing at Mohawk Seedkeeper Garden is we plant an enormous amount of Carolinian varieties. And the reason for that is because we do live in one of the largest remaining stands of Carolinian forest in Southern Ontario. So, but we still are missing a lot of varieties. So as I start to, so you can go into my garden and you'll see some beautiful marrow flowers, right? The whole variety of those. And those flowers, you can eat them and they're used for like the ones that are originally used to make marshmallows and stuff like that. You can't find them in the bush. So as soon as that gets, I planted one, and once I get a few, which I'm starting now, I will take a couple of them and I'll go plant them in the bush. So hopefully to propagate them, because as a member of the human race, I can't expect, and I do not ever expect the government to do everything for me. I'd rather do things to support the right way. So the more that people start to plant their own forage or start to put things back into the woodlands, then the better off we all are going to be, because we're not waiting for a program to do that and then just complain, well, why isn't the government doing that? Well, they got 100 other things to do, things that, I can't build the road, but I can plant, and things. So that's really important. So in terms of those communities, as long as you don't have, which again, internet research will tell you if a particular plant causes a detrimental effect sometimes it'll tell you exactly what plants it causes it to. Other times it just says it can be overpowering to other plants. So those are the ones you would, kind of watch out for, but that collective of them. And as soon as you put in the one and it comes up next spring again, and and it's starting to multiply, well, you got the right one. And in terms of just in my own personal garden, like people are always asking me, like, geez, there's so many, there are a million charts out there, for companion planting and things like that. But I always think about what my mom told me, and we were working in the garden one day, and we had some tomatoes and we were putting some herbs in around them. And, I said, well, how do you know which one to put there? And she just looked at me like I was kind of like, okay, kid. But she looked at me, she just said, can you eat them together? She said, do they taste good when you eat them together? And I said, yeah. She said, well, then they'll grow together. And that was the simplest, most logical way of understanding companion planting that I ever heard, was when she said that. If they eat them, and that's almost 99% of the time that's true. So we sometimes in our Western thinking, or our mindset, we try to make things too complicated, right? And sometimes we just have to slow down and say, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with trying. There's nothing wrong with an experiment. Every year I have at least one to three major experiments in some strategy of agriculture going on in my garden, because that's important. That's how we learn things. That's how we observe things. Some of them don't work and some work really well. And then once I figure out, yeah, this works and this is why it works, then not right away, but in a couple of years, I will pass that knowledge on. So I think that's really, really important for us. So we'll come back to our questions in a minute. I just kind of wanted to make sure I get finished up. So I did want to say that we need to, following along that line, that simply that sitting in the environment or the space, that's what the healthy vibrations are, what naturally heals us. Okay, so the longer we live in a particular environment, and this is a question that I am asked a lot, it's like there's this, I don't even know how to explain it, but I meet a lot of settler people who want to learn a lot of Indigenous knowledge, and they want to do things, and it's literally like they want to become part who I am. Okay. And the only thing I can ever say to them is that the longer we view it, like I view it, my garden grows in 7-year cycles. And after a certain amount of years, it's going to be depleted. So in the first 7 years, it's an infant, right? It's a baby. So I have to treat it like a baby. I got to give it a lot of more compost, and I got to be out there watering it, probably a lot more, and tending it and all those things. Then once it gets to be that 7 to 14-year-old in the next cycle, when it's a younger person, healthier and strong. And then eventually my garden gets to be an elder, like the old people. So each phase of my garden, and you know, the longer you keep a garden, you'll start to see it go through these phases. And we remember that because at each phase we do different things. So those are important to us. And so I often tell settler people, I says, well, you know, think about those 7-year cycles. And I know with other cultures, they use 9 and stuff like that, but ours are pretty, I don't know why, but we're pretty much set on 7. But once you've been here for 7 generations, then you're kind of part of the woodwork, right? You started to develop a relationship, particularly those people who continue to live where they first came. Okay, if they were settled out in Alberta and they kind of pretty much stayed in Alberta for generations, those people are attached to Alberta. Okay, they may not be as happy to live in BC or Ontario or wherever. So after that, your generations, you start to develop this indigenized part of your soul and your spirit and your being as well, because you're breathing and living with the environment that's there. Now, the more polluted, the worse off we are with that environment, the more things, the longer it takes that to acclimatize to your body, right? To the generations of your people. So that's why we have to work so hard. But as you become part of this ecosystem, you have to work to keep it good. Okay, you have to work at it, and that's everybody's responsibility. So we have to really think about that and try to keep them. So it really becomes part of you completely. So for you eventually to completely heal, like we seek out these places that were our original, and especially those of you who have grown up in a certain place, then you eventually moved someplace else and started to raise your own family. You start to acknowledge you've got this connection for, oh, I used to live in Welland. You know, I grew up in Welland. And so you got these fond memories. And so you just naturally think, well, my kids must love Welland too, because I love Welland. But they don't, because they don't know Welland, right? They know where they are. So that movement sometimes can be a negative to us, right? Like trying to return. But I do find that it's kind of more attached to the water systems, right? If you're in the Grand River watershed, then that's your homelands, right? So the more that you stay within that watershed, the better off kind of that you become, right? Also, those environments, they hold your dead, right? And as a responsibility, as an Indigenous person, one of my greatest responsibilities is to take care of our dead, right? So we have ceremonies a couple times a year where we do that, and it's a different cycle of ceremonies when a person has first died, like within that first year, but eventually they go into these long-term cycles. And so we acknowledge the places that they're buried at as sacred places. Okay, we don't visit them in our culture. We don't visit graves. I know a lot of cultures, you know, people are always going to the cemetery to put flowers and stuff. We don't do that. We have 2 times a year when we're allowed to visit with the dead. And the more you, because in our belief, if you do that too much, you keep holding that spirit to the ground, and they have a place to go. They have another life with us, because we don't know any different. We don't have a difference between life and death, right? It's just another plane of living. So we don't want to interrupt them in that path. So that's why we have 2 times of the year when they're welcome. And even when we do those ceremonies, we actually do them in the dark, so that we can't see any of the spirits that enter, that want to dance with us or sing with us or do the things that we're doing. So that's important. And as you start to, as a generation start to become attached to the land here, that responsibility to take care of their dead is going to be more and more important to them. So allowing our sacred environments, along with that, like there are some plants that we hold sacred as well. You know, you'll hear people talk about sweetgrass, right? And all the most indigenous languages have a word for it just because it's simply used so much. Okay. It's used culinary, like in our foods. My daughter owns Uego restaurant here on Six Nations. She's a pretty famous indigenous chef, and she's very well known for her blueberry sweetgrass barbecue sauces that she makes. And so certain ones have culinary uses, but they also have medicinal uses. Sweetgrass is more in terms of a helper. We burn it on our wood stoves and things like that to help clear up our minds. You know, and we have things like sages and wild strawberries, and tobacco. All these plants have smells and oils and vibrations that comfort us. So we're always planting them too. And I have a special project that I've had volunteers working on. I think we start on June 10th this year. But we're going to go for a couple of weeks, and we're going to plant the what we call the protector plants. There are a whole bunch of series of plants that protect our environment and help us be more secure in who we are and in the place. And so we're going to be all around. We have the earthship where we teach all of our, you know, we have volunteers in our workshops and stuff. So we're going to be in 3 sides of the earthship is all dirt. It's all, you know, but it hasn't been landscaped yet because we're only like 3 years old. But so we're going to spend a couple weeks in June this year and make sure that we start to get that landscape and to do the ceremony to place all these plants in there to help not just protect us, you know, like when you go on many like Haudenosaunee communities particularly, you'll see cedars planted, not just because they look nice, because they are one of the protector trees. So you'll see them along the edges of properties quite often. You'll see white pines. When we have our infants in the old days, they don't do it really anymore, other than just the umbilical cord and things like that. But they never put infants, miscarriage babies like that. They never put them in the big ceremony. They needed them close to stay close to the family. So they were always planted. And then a white pine was always planted and there. So different trees are used to help protect our environment. And so that's why we bring them in. So it's a keeping our own space clean, and not just clean, but our plants, trees, shrubs serving the purpose of filtering negative energy away from us. And that's kind of one of our important things. So the more indigenous varieties that you choose to bring into your space, you'll start to do that. You'll start to create this positive within that. So that's all I kind of wanted to say for today. So, but if there's any other questions, I can maybe have a look at them now. Were you reading the questions at all?
A lot of comments, fewer questions. So if you have questions, please enter them now. As we wrap up our time with Terrylynn, we want to make sure that if you have specific questions. A very succinct question, mushrooms?
Well, it's kind of funny because I don't, actually this winter I grew some mushrooms in the earthship. I don't like mushrooms, right? But I understand their place as one of the most significant elements, plants within any ecosystem. Okay, in our languages we talk about, because like the fungus or the mushrooms, the things that grow, I think the science people call myceliums and back to all those things. Okay, in our languages we call those spider webs, because that's when we move the soils. That's what my grandpa used to call them. And that's what we, you know, I call them because that's, I teach my grandchildren, see the spider webs, and they'll look for them. They'll look for that white in those lines. We understand how much they put out feelers and how they support each other in terms of any other thing, right? So when a tree can't get enough of a nutrient or a drink, right? When these spider webs come in and when these fungi are growing, they extend that root system for trees, right? That's how we understand that. So we try not to disturb those. That's why we don't, we try not to disturb mulches in its first year, because they're starting to establish. We don't want to. And we have a whole teaching about how we deal with wood chips. So that's all I can say, because I say I don't personally like eating them, but I have tried the what you call the hallucinogenic ones that are through Indigenous ceremonies. Like I've been invited to, I get invited to a lot of things like that. And I have to say it's something you have to develop a way of a relationship with, because it can be a scary thing, you know. And it's not always, you know, it's okay to do in the environment of the people that know how to manage that. It's not one of our medicines, so we don't use that here. But so as long as you're with people that do it, I think it's okay. So.
Do you have any quick thoughts on poison ivy? We have a number of questions about pawpaws, so I want to set those specific questions aside as we wrap up here. But poison ivy,
those the poison ivies and oaks and stuff like that, and I don't know. It's something you get to learn, right? And I think that again, it becomes part of your environment. It becomes part of your relationship. You get poison ivy, you know, maybe the first time, or poison oak, and you get it kind of after that. Sometimes you just walk by it, you don't even touch it, and you get it, right? It's just like that. But then eventually your body gets acclimatized to it. Okay. So unless it's really going to be someplace where I think I've never really ever gone out to consciously try to annihilate it, right? Unless it's a place where I think it's going to bother some people, right? Those, what's that, that plant? Oh, that hogwort thing, or whatever the heck they call it, the invasive one, that's worse. Right? Those I do walk through my property. I'm always trying to get rid of them, because we've had them now on Six Nations for probably 3 seasons now. So they were along the roads and they're starting to come in. So I do try to get rid of them, just because I have so many grandchildren. They're always over the fields. So, and I find them to be a lot more scary than getting some poison ivy, right? In terms of pawpaw trees, we got some growing here. I've been growing them, I think, for about 7 years. The first couple of years, they weren't successful, and I tried two things. I put one in what I would call its ideal location, right along the creek into us, you know, underneath kind of, what's the word? Under the understory, like where its ideal condition should be. I put some out into rotting wood garden that I have there, because I thought, okay, that's a really nutritious place. But within their first like 3-4 years, they're really hard to grow. So the ones that I have now, I actually brought the baby ones I had. I've been growing them I grew them inside for 5 years before I put them out. Like I grew them inside, they acclimatized into the earthship, into the greenhouse part of it. So I let them in and out. But I didn't put them in their place until, so I have others that I've actually are historical ones, because they came to me from a United Empire Loyalist settlement that was inhabited by our people with a bunch of Mohawk families when we first came up from the United States. So wherever you see those pawpaws, there's a good chance that there's an archaeological site there, because our people, the Haudenosaunee people, have a special relationship, because the pawpaw was the only tree that we actually cultivated. It's the only fruit tree that we ever did that with. And we brought it literally up from Florida all the way here. And, you know, archaeological evidence suggests that that's how the pawpaws got up here. In later times, the other one that we have an affinity for is peach trees, right? You know, we did lose most peach orchards during the Sullivan campaign, when they burned all of our fields, all of our orchards, they killed 90% of our people during that time, when they're trying to eradicate all Indians east of the Mississippi. But pawpaws are hard to grow. So put them up, if you're live in a city, put them on the warm side of your house. Be careful when you buy them, because the majority of the ones that you buy at a nursery are, what's that word? They have a scion wood. They're not, their root is not the original pawpaw. Because if you're going and you find one in the wild, then you dig it up. If you just, kind of go down, it grows down, but it has these side roots like strawberries kind of, but they kind of come down. You got to get all this and some of this for that pawpaw tree to grow, to survive. If you just get, a bit of this going down, it generally, it dies on you. But if you take the one from the garden center, if they will do that, and then they'll put them on another root, how they do that with all the trees, into some other variety. Those ones will only get about 1/3 of the pawpaws as the original. So you won't get very many pawpaws on your tree eventually. So whether that's important to you, you don't really need a lot of pawpaws, but as an indigenous food, we dried ours. My daughter Tanya, she'll take, she freezes a whole bunch of them because she uses them in a lot of her cooking, usually in the month of February. I don't know why February, but that's when she's making these pawpaw sauces for fishes and things like that. So it's a really good fruit, and I love her pawpaw tarts. They're just the best. So
I think we will do an entire workshop just on pawpaws based on the feedback and the comments and the questions and the desire from people to learn more about them and grow them. We do have someone who is growing them from seed for us for our Oakville Food Forest. So it sounds like we have a lot to learn to make sure that they survive and stay healthy. So Terrylynn, thank you so much for your talk this morning. I look forward to continuing to learn from you over the coming months. And if you would like to learn along with us, we are hoping to set up regular learning sessions and then bring that knowledge back to Halton region to share with other growers and our growing network of like-minded people. So please do stay in touch with us, and we will continue to learn and share from each other and protect Mother Earth.
So I just did want to mention, I do have a Facebook page. Don't just send a friend request to Terrylynn Brant because my Facebook page is Mohawk Seedkeeper. Okay, I do have my one under my name, but that's just kind of more for goofy stuff or family stuff. So if you want to know more focused on my garden knowledge and stuff, then friend me at Mohawk Seedkeepers. And I am working hopefully to establish that I do have agricultural schools. Sometimes they're just workshops and things, but I do post events that we're having right on there. People are welcome to come out, visit, volunteer. Just, sometimes the easiest way to learn is to just get out here and see what we're doing. Because we're not that far. We're, literally 40 minutes, I think, from down the mountain in Hamilton. So if you're up on top of the mountain, a little bit quicker. So we're not that far away. So please.
It's a lovely drive.
Yeah. Join us if you're so inclined. I'm pretty much there every day in the summertime as it starts to warm up. Now we're heavy. We'll be, well, probably another week we'll be really heavy into our maple syrup. And we actually built a homemade reverse osmosis to help us with the, to try to not have to use so much fuel, like cutting trees to make the maple, well, we make maple syrup, but we also make mostly maple sugar. So, so that's what we'll be starting within about another week, or by the end of next week, probably we'll start to be into the boiling stage. So yeah, come on out and hope to meet some of you then.
Wonderful, thank you again. So Mohawk Seedkeepers on Facebook to get directly in touch with Terrylynn, or you can send us a note and we will be organizing some volunteer opportunities with Terrylynn as well. So please do stay in touch. And coming up immediately, we have a wonderful session with Holly Marsh on bokashi composting. So we will be closing this Zoom link. Head over to the next one to join us with Holly Marsh. And thank you once again for joining us, Terrylynn, and we hope to see everyone very, very soon. Have a great day.